My name is Ashley Putnam. I'm 38 years old, and if you had asked me 3 months ago what my biggest fear was, I would have said missing a project deadline. I never thought it would be a text message. I was at my desk, surrounded by empty coffee cups and half-written code when my phone buzzed. The notification preview said, Jacob, my boyfriend of 6 years. We lived together for 4 shared bills plans, even a cat we pretended was joint custody. The message read, Ashley, I need to be honest. You're not my type anymore. I've evolved beyond this relationship. I blinked at it. Once. Twice. Thought maybe it was a joke, a typo, something that would be followed by a laughing emoji. Instead, 3 more bubbles appeared. I've been doing inner work with my spiritual mentor and realized I'm vibrating on a different frequency. You're too corporate, too logical. I need someone who understands energy, not just electricity. I stared at the words until they blurred. Then, with the kind of calm that only shock can give, I typed back, Congratulations on your evolution. He replied instantly, That's it, no reaction. This is exactly what I mean. You're emotionally numb, Ashley. I placed my phone face down on the desk and went back to debugging. Somewhere between compiling code and deleting useless comments, it hit me Jacob had just broken up with me through a spirituality metaphor. What he didn't know, what he would never know, was that I'd been planning to leave too. I'd just received a promotion, a massive one, senior IT architect at a global firm with a salary that could have paid for our rent twice over. I was going to tell him that weekend, but I'd delayed not out of fear, out of curiosity. I wanted to see if he would love me without numbers attached. Apparently, I got my answer. When I came home that night, the apartment was quiet except for the faint smell of incense, Jacob's idea of purifying negative energy. There was a note on the counter written in the looping script he used for his clients' affirmation cards. For your heart chakra, you'll need it. Taped to it was a polished rose quartz crystal. I stared at the note for a long time before dropping both into the trash. Then I opened my laptop and started searching for new apartments. The lease was under both our names, but I was paying 90% of it, our $4,000 downtown unit that Jacob liked to call manifested abundance. I'd been covering utilities, car insurance, even his organic groceries, and monthly yoga teacher subscriptions. He contributed in the form of emotional support and positive vibration. At 1 a.m., I sent our landlord an email. Subject notice to vacate. I offered to pay 2 months' rent as penalty to end the lease early. Worth it. Freedom had a price tag, and for once I could afford it. By morning, Jacob was gone. His side of the closet was empty, except for a single linen shirt that smelled like sandalwood and lemon. He didn't even take the cat, probably assumed I'd feed it like everything else. That day, I walked into work with my usual coffee and an unusual calm. My colleague, Tina, noticed immediately. New haircut. Nope. Just deleted a man, she snorted. God, I wish I could uninstall mine that easily. I smiled a small private smile. She didn't need to know the rest, that the silence felt heavier than I expected. That part of me wanted him to call to explain, to apologize, but he didn't. Instead, my phone buzzed again that afternoon. A notification from Instagram. Jacob had posted a picture. He stood beside a woman I'd never seen tattoo sleeve long. Skirt a half smile that screamed festival girl. The caption read, When you align with someone who speaks your soul's true language. The comments were full of hearts and yes, king. I didn't comment, didn't like, didn't block. I just logged into every shared subscription, Netflix, Spotify, HBO, his meal kit plan, and quietly hit cancel. 10 minutes later, my phone lit up. Jacob, did you seriously just cancel Netflix? That's so petty. Me. Evolved beings should pay for their own streaming services, Jacob. You're proving my point. You're so cold. I can't believe I wasted 6 years. He called 3 times. I didn't answer. That evening, I sat by the window with a glass of wine, watching the city lights shimmer like tiny pixels. My reflection in the glass looked calm, but my heartbeat said otherwise. I wasn't angry. Anger would have meant I still cared. What I felt was something Sputnamger, a quiet awareness that I'd spent 6 years financing someone's fantasy. I opened my journal, something I hadn't touched in months, and wrote, He says he's evolved. Maybe he has. Maybe I'm just catching up. Over the next few days, I found an apartment 3 blocks away, a penthouse with floor-to-ceiling windows and a terrace overlooking the skyline. Twice the rent, but it felt like fresh air. The movers came on a Saturday morning. I took only what was mine, clothes, books, laptop, the cat. I left the couch, the bed, the dining table, everything he'd picked for the energy. As they loaded boxes, my phone buzzed again. Jacob, where's the couch? That was ours. Me. It was paid with my frequency. He went silent for 3 hours. Then, Jacob, fine. Enjoy your soulless new apartment. Luna and I are happy. We're staying here. I didn't reply. Let the silence be my answer. He'd figure it out when rent was due in 5 days. The first night in my new place, I unpacked just enough to sit on the floor with takeout noodles. The city spread beneath me like a living circuit board, lights flickering. Cars flowing in patterns that made sense only from above. I felt something I hadn't in months' space. Space to breathe, to think, to exist without performing calmness for someone who mistook stillness for emptiness. I took a deep breath, leaned back, and whispered to no one, "Congratulations, Ashley. You've evolved too." The morning sunlight spilled into my new apartment, bouncing off the white walls like it had never known dust or incense smoke. For the first time in years, I woke up without the faint smell of sandalwood choking the air. The silence was liberating. I brewed my coffee, black, unfiltered, unapologetic, and opened my laptop. A dozen messages blinked on the screen. Not from clients or friends, but from Jacob. "You blocked me on Spotify, too. Really mature. You don't have to do this, Ashley. We can still be friends. Luna says this hostility is your unresolved trauma." I took a sip of coffee, blocked his number. Then I looked around the half-furnished apartment and smiled. It still echoed when I walked, but it already felt like mine. There was a lightness here that the old place never had. Maybe it was the absence of Himalayan salt lamps, or maybe it was the absence of a man who talked about abundance while using my credit card. That week, work felt sharper, cleaner. My new title, Senior IT Architect, sounded sterile to most people, but to me, it was poetry. Numbers. Logic, structure, things that stayed loyal when people didn't. At lunch, Tina nudged me across the table. "You've been humming all day. You in love or just debt-free?" "Both, actually," she grinned. "You're dangerous when you're peaceful." I didn't tell her that peace for me looked a lot like revenge, but the quiet kind. The kind that didn't require shouting. 2 days later, Jacob's evolution appeared all over social media. A photo of him and Luna sitting cross-legged under fairy lights. Caption: "When two souls vibrate as one, the universe conspires in their favor." I almost scrolled past until I noticed the couch behind them. My couch. The same one I'd bought after working 70-hour weeks last year. The irony stung for half a second, then turned funny. By evening, another post a video of him hosting a couples manifestation session. 5 attendees, 1 camera tripod, and a banner that read, "A line or decline." I didn't comment. But later that night, as I canceled the last remaining shared subscription, his gym membership, I couldn't help whispering, "Decline sounds right." The next day, my phone lit up again. "Jacob, are you serious? You canceled my gym access, me." "It's called detachment. You should appreciate that." "Jacob, this is petty, Ashley. You're better than this." "Me, no, I'm just better without this." He didn't reply, but he didn't have to. I knew that silence well. It was the sound of his ego bruising. A week passed. I assembled furniture, bought plants, even installed a shelf by the terrace for my cat to sunbathe. I named the plant Boundaries. It thrived immediately. Meanwhile, Jacob started crumbling. His new spiritual empire looked less like enlightenment and more like chaos. One of his videos had gone semi-viral, but not for the reasons he hoped. Tina sent me the link with 3 laughing emojis. I clicked. Jacob was in a park shirt, half unbuttoned, shouting at a group of pigeons. "You're stuck in the matrix of fear. Fly free, you, beautiful souls." Someone in the background yelled, "Bro, they're literally birds." I couldn't stop laughing. I laughed so hard my cat ran away and hid under the sofa. But laughter is Sputnumj. It fills the air, then fades into something quieter. I found myself sitting on the couch, looking out at the city again, wondering how I'd spent 6 years with a man who thought hashtags were a moral compass. I remembered the early days, how he'd made me feel seen, how he'd listened when I ranted about clients or deadlines. But somewhere along the way, listening turned into preaching. My logic became his enemy. My calm became his proof of coldness. Love had quietly turned into charity. 3 days later, another message. This time from an unknown number. "Hey Ashley, it's Luna. Jacob told me you're still emotionally fixated on him. He's worried about you." I actually choked on my tea. Fixated. The man who left a crystal instead of an apology. Thought I was obsessed. Me. Don't worry. I've evolved. Luna. That's good. Healing takes time. I know you're jealous now, but when you meet your twin flame, me. I already did. She's me. Blocked. By then, even my dreams had stopped replaying him. My mind had moved on, though my playlists still needed updating. Half of them were his mood-raising frequency tracks. I replaced them with silence. It sounded better. I started climbing again, an old hobby. The gym was bright, full of laughter, nothing like the quiet, tense energy I used to live in. There was something poetic about gripping a wall, finding balance inch by inch higher each time. At the top of one climb, breathless and sweating, I looked down and thought, this is evolution, not his kind, the real kind. That night, as I watered boundaries, I scrolled past one of Jacob's stories. He was hosting an energy alignment workshop with Luna. 10 minutes later, I saw another post, Luna tagging someone new with a heart emoji. The caption read, "Some frequencies aren't meant to last." The comments were turned off. I set my phone down, leaned back, and laughed softly. The universe had better timing than I ever gave it credit for. By the end of the month, I'd completely moved in. The terrace had string lights, the cat had claimed the couch, and I had a peace that didn't require meditation apps. One evening, Tina came over with a bottle of wine. "To new beginnings," she said. "To quiet endings," I replied. We drank, watched the sunset, and for the first time in a long while, I felt full. Not of noise or validation or fear, just full of myself. Jacob once said I was emotionally stunted. Maybe he was right. Maybe I don't cry over men who mistake chaos for depth. I simply outgrew them. The first sign that Jacob's spiritual awakening was dimming came 2 weeks after I'd moved out. He posted a GoFundMe link with the title, "Help a Conscious Healer Stay Aligned with the Universe." Goal $10,000. Description: After Putnam sending the corporate matrix. I'm facing a financial Putnam scission. Any donation supports my healing journey and sacred work of guiding others toward abundance. He attached a selfie of himself shirtless in a field holding a singing bowl. The campaign raised $183 in 3 days, $100 from his mother, $50 from Luna, and $33 from someone named Star Phoenix. I shouldn't have laughed, but I did, out loud, alone in my kitchen while pouring myself another coffee. That same week, work was thriving. My project team had just landed a major client, and my boss asked me to lead the software redesign. It felt surreal after years of being told I was too intense, too focused, too masculine in energy. My precision was finally being celebrated. During lunch, Tina slid her phone across the table. You've seen this, right? It was a screenshot of Jacob's latest post. When your ex tries to control you with money, remember financial freedom starts in the mind. The caption below, I left behind toxic materialism to honor my growth. Some people can't handle that. I smiled faintly. He's still obsessed with me. Tina smirked. You were his entire business model. But not everyone found it funny. By the weekend, 2 mutual acquaintances reached out separately. Hey, Ashley, are you okay? Jacob said. Things got intense before the breakup. What kind of intense? I asked. They hesitated. He said you were emotionally manipulative, controlling, that he felt unsafe. For a moment, the room spun. Unsafe. I'd paid his rent, his phone bill, his therapist no, his energy coach. I'd been the calm in every storm he manufactured, and now I was the villain in his redemption arc. I forced a chuckle. Well, if paying for someone's gluten-free granola is abuse, I guess I'm guilty. They didn't laugh. Maybe they wanted to believe him. People love a story where the quiet one turns out to be the monster. That night, I poured a glass of red wine and sat by my terrace phone in hand, scrolling through his posts. Each caption was more dramatic than the last. She drained my spirit while pretending to support my dreams. When a woman uses money to cage you, that's not love, it's ego. I almost pitied him. Almost. Because behind every sentence, I could still hear his insecurity screaming for attention. By Monday, the smear campaign was in full swing. He posted a long essay titled, How to Recognize a Narcissistic Partner Disguised as Supportive. People commented hearts and words like, stay strong and you're so brave. One even wrote, my ex did the same thing, took my crystals and blocked my energy. I wanted to reply, no, Karen. I just threw away the rocks he didn't pay for, but I restrained myself. Instead, I took screenshots, every accusation, every lie. I created a folder on my drive titled Receipts. If he wanted to tell stories, fine. I had data. The following weekend, Tina came over for dinner. Halfway through our meal, she looked up from her phone and said, "Oh my God, Ashley, you need to see this." Jacob had posted again. A video this time. He was sitting in his old apartment back against my bookshelf. The caption read, "Healing after financial abuse." I almost choked on my noodles. "He's filming this in my old place." "Wait," Tina frowned, zooming in. "Isn't that your couch?" "Not anymore." We both burst out laughing, the kind of uncontrollable, painful laughter that leaves you gasping for air. When we finally stopped, Tina said, "You know, he's basically proving you were the stable one." I nodded. He's redefining rock bottom. Still, part of me couldn't ignore how fast resentment spreads online. My phone buzzed with DMs, some curious, some judgmental. Sputningers asking if I had emotionally manipulated him, if I believed in spiritual healing, if I'd really weaponized money. I deleted them all. But that night, lying in bed, I thought about how quiet people like me rarely tell our side. We just move on. We don't post or explain, we rebuild. And maybe that's why people like Jacob always get the last word. Except not this time. Because silence, I realized, isn't surrender. It's strategy. 3 weeks after the breakup, I ran into one of Jacob's former clients at a cafe. A woman named Harper, freelance artist, always polite. She approached me shyly. "Ashley Wright, you're Jacob's ex, guilty." She hesitated. "I stopped working with him. He tried to get me to pay in vibrational installments. I think he's lost." I smiled. "He's finding himself, just in circles." That evening, I opened my journal again. He calls me cold, but maybe warmth isn't something you owe people who mistake you for a wallet. I closed it, sat by the terrace again. The city below glowed like a motherboard alive and humming structured chaos in motion. Somewhere out there, Jacob was probably talking about vibrations while borrowing someone else's Wi-Fi. And me, I was quietly thriving. No GoFundMe, no crystals, just peace. But the universe, as Jacob liked to say, has a sense of humor. A week later, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Hey, it's Jacob. You probably saw my posts. I'm just trying to tell my truth. I wish you healing." I typed, slowly savoring each word. "Thanks. I wish you employment." Then I hit send, and for the first time since the breakup, I laughed without bitterness. It's funny how quickly the universe stops providing when the rent's due. By the start of the second month, Jacob's GoFundMe had flatlined. His clients were down to two, one of them, his mother. The posts turned desperate. Gone were the poetic captions about alignment and self-love. Now they sounded more like financial alerts with emojis. The universe is testing me. Donations welcome. I scrolled past one while sitting in my office, sipping my second cup of coffee. My team was preparing for a client presentation, and I caught myself smiling at how grounded it all felt. Slides, deadlines, budgets, structure. The opposite of Jacob's chaos. Tina leaned over my shoulder. "You're glowing again. Did you finally go to therapy?" "No," I said. "I just stopped sponsoring delusion." Later that week, I ran into Bailey, one of Jacob's old friends, at a networking event. We hadn't spoken in months. She hesitated before saying, "I heard about everything with Jacob." "How are you?" "Better," I said. "You." She sighed. "He asked to crash at my place for a few days. Said his new girlfriend kicked him out. I nearly spilled my drink. Luna kicked him out." "Yeah. Apparently she got tired of covering his energetic expenses." We both laughed, but her expression turned serious. "He's not doing well, Ashley. He's broke couch hopping, talking about minimalism, like it's a philosophy instead of a necessity." I felt a Sputnum's twist in my stomach. Not guilt exactly, more like déjà vu. I knew that version of Jacob, the charming disaster, who always found someone to catch him. That night I checked his page again. It was worse than I thought. New post minimalism is liberation from attachment. The universe provides when you surrender completely. Photo Jacob sitting cross-legged on a bare mattress, eyes closed, surrounded by 3 crystals and a half-eaten avocado. The comments were brutal. "Bro, pay your bills. Manifest a job king. Did the universe also take your furniture?" I should have felt vindicated. Instead, I just felt tired. I closed the app, turned off my phone, and stepped out onto the terrace. The city air was heavy with humidity, but I loved it. It smelled like real-life bus fumes, rain people, not incense and denial. For a second, though, I wondered if he was eating properly, if he had somewhere to sleep that night. I hated myself for wondering. Compassion, I realized, is the most exhausting addiction. The next morning, I came across his name again, but not on social media this time. My landlord had emailed me. "Hi, Ashley, just wanted to inform you that the previous tenants from your old address broke their lease again. The male occupant couldn't make rent. Place is listed again if you know anyone interested. Jacob had officially lost the apartment. I reread the email twice, feeling an odd mixture of satisfaction and sadness. 6 years of my life had played out in those walls, love, frustration, endless conversations about energy flow, and now it was just another rental listing. I typed back a short reply. Thanks for letting me know. I'll share it with friends. But I didn't share it. I just wanted confirmation that the universe had finally sent him an eviction notice. A few days later, Tina and I met for brunch. She was mid-story when she suddenly gasped, phone in hand. Look at this, she said, spinning the screen toward me. It was a photo of Jacob at a park holding up a cardboard sign that said, offering free energy readings, donations welcome. I blinked. He's busking. For vibes, apparently. I sipped my mimosa and said, at least he's finally working. A week passed. No more posts, no more GoFundMes, just digital silence. I assumed he'd finally found a couch to occupy another soul to align with, until one night my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. Ashley, it's Jacob. Please don't block me. I just need to talk. I hesitated. I know things ended badly, but I'm struggling. Luna's gone. Bailey kicked me out. The universe feels quiet. For a moment, I imagined him typing those words sitting in someone's borrowed room, still clinging to language that made him sound enlightened instead of lost. I don't have anyone else to ask. Can I stay at your place for a few days? Just until I find work. I'll contribute emotionally and spiritually. I stared at that last sentence for a full minute. Then I started typing. Jacob, I'm glad you're reaching out, but my apartment's already full. It's me, my cat, and a piece I'm not willing to lose. I hope the universe provides exactly what you need. He replied within seconds. So that's it. You're just going to leave me homeless. I supported you emotionally for years. I exhaled. The nerve. You didn't support me emotionally. You drained me financially. Big difference. You'll regret this, Ashley. Karma's real. Good. Maybe it'll pay your next deposit. Blocked. Again. That night I couldn't sleep. I replayed his words, karma, regret, homeless. And I hated that a part of me still felt responsible for his ruin. Maybe because I'd once believed saving him was love. But now I knew better. Saving someone who refuses to grow isn't compassion, it's self-sabotage. The next morning, I woke up early, brewed my coffee, and watched the sunrise spill over the city. The light touched everything, the terrace, the cat sleeping by the window, the half-finished book on my desk. Jacob was probably somewhere counting blessings he couldn't afford, and for the first time I didn't feel pity, just distance. Real clean distance. A month later, I ran into Bailey again. She waved me over at the grocery store. You'll love this, she said. Jacob tried staying at my place again. He said his aura was too unstable for the shelter. I laughed, shaking my head, and I told him, so is your credit score. He didn't get the joke. We both laughed, but underneath it, I felt a quiet relief. Not joy in his downfall, just closure. Because sometimes the universe doesn't punish people. It just lets them live with themselves. That evening, I watered my plants and whispered to boundaries. We're thriving, aren't we? It wasn't until later, while scrolling through my phone, that I saw Jacob's latest post. A blurry selfie in his mother's basement. Caption, humbled but healing. The journey continues. Maybe it did, but it was no longer my journey. I closed the app, turned off the lights, and stepped outside onto my terrace. The night air was cool, the city alive below me. For the first time, I felt no need to look back. It had been 3 months since Jacob's ascension, and I had almost forgotten what his voice sounded like. The peace was that complete. Then one morning, an email appeared in my inbox with the subject line, Reconnection with Elevated Awareness. From Jacob. I nearly deleted it on instinct, but curiosity won. I clicked. The message began with exactly the kind of spiritual jargon I'd predicted. Ashley, I'm reaching out with humility and higher consciousness. I now see that my journey required a period of solitude and divine lessons about material sustainability. I was hasty in ending our relationship. I realize now that you were part of my soul contract, guiding me toward accountability. I paused to sip my coffee before continuing. I am currently between living situations and would appreciate discussing a temporary arrangement. Perhaps I could stay in your new space for a short while. I promise to contribute emotionally and spiritually to the environment. I have grown so much, and I believe you would be impressed by my evolution. With love and light, Jacob. I read it twice, maybe 3 times. Then I laughed so hard my cat leapt off the counter in alarm. Contribute spiritually to the environment, I muttered. What is he going to do? Sage my rent. I forwarded the email to Tina with one line. The man is now crowdfunding my living room. Her reply came 10 seconds later. Tell him your apartment's already at maximum energy capacity. So that's exactly what I did. Jacob, I'm glad to hear you're continuing your spiritual journey. Unfortunately, my space is currently aligned with a different frequency, peace, independence, and bills paid on time. I trust the universe will guide you to suitable housing. Best wishes on your journey, Ashley. I hit send and closed the laptop. That should have been the end of it. It wasn't. An hour later, another ping. You're seriously leaving me homeless after 6 years. You evolved beyond empathy, Ashley. This is your ego talking. My ego isn't the one asking for free rent, I replied. Seconds later, my spiritual mentor says you're going through a karmic regression. You'll face consequences for this. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. For a while, I sat on my terrace watching the morning traffic snake through the streets below. Somewhere out there, Jacob was probably telling someone he'd Putnam-sended yet another heartbreak. But beneath the humor, something tugged at me. A small, buried sadness. I remembered the man he'd been before hashtags and mantras before every argument turned into a sermon. There had been nights when he'd cooked dinner, when we'd stayed up talking about travel dreams, the future. It was easy to hate the caricature he'd become, harder to mourn the person I thought he was. I closed my eyes. That's what grief really is, I thought. Not missing the person, but the illusion. A few days later, I got another unexpected call, this time from a familiar number. Hello, Ashley dear, it's Elaine, Jacob's mother. Her voice had that same weary politeness she used when apologizing for his behavior. I'm so sorry to bother you, but Jacob's been staying with me. He's not well. I leaned against the counter. Not well how he's lost, I think. Refuses to get a job. Says working would lower his vibrational frequency. I told him that if the universe can afford his kombucha, it can afford mine too. I almost smiled. Elaine had always been sharp. I don't know what to do with him, she continued. He keeps saying you abandoned him. I didn't abandon him, I said softly. I just stopped volunteering. She sighed. That sounds about right. Then quieter. You were good for him, Ashley. Too good. We talked for a few minutes more before hanging up. When I set the phone down, I felt Sputnam jelly calm. Sometimes closure doesn't arrive like a thunderclap. Sometimes it's a mother's exhausted voice saying what you already knew. That weekend, Tina dragged me to a climbing event, her latest obsession. I didn't want to go, but she bribed me with sushi after. That's how I met George. He was nothing like Jacob. He didn't talk about vibrations or energies. He just asked what kind of music I liked and remembered the answer the next time we met. Simple, solid, human. We started climbing together every Saturday. Between laughs and chalk dust, I realized I'd forgotten what normal felt like, how easy conversation could be when it wasn't a performance. A week later, as if on cue, Jacob texted again. I can't believe you're ignoring me. I'm starting real therapy now, not just spiritual work. I've realized I made mistakes. Could we talk? Maybe get coffee? I stared at the message for a long time. The old me, the version that once believed fixing him was purpose, might have agreed. But that Ashley had evolved too. No, Jacob, I'm seeing someone. I wish you healing sincerely. He replied instantly. Who is he? What does he have that I don't? A job, I typed and hit send. Tina howled when I told her. You're savage. No, I said, smiling. I'm healed. That night I journaled again. Forgiveness isn't letting someone back in. It's deleting their number and wishing them peace you no longer have to pay for. I closed the notebook and looked around my apartment. Soft lights, warm air. The faint hum of a life finally quiet enough to hear my own thoughts. Jacob's name no longer made my pulse jump. His chaos no longer filled my world. The universe had provided after all, just not for him. It had been 6 months since Jacob's evolution text, and my life had finally leveled out into something that felt beautifully ordinary. Every morning started the same coffee on the terrace, the cat curled by the window, and George humming some out-of-tune song while packing his gym bag. He never gave long speeches about destiny. He just kissed my forehead before leaving, murmuring, "See you tonight, partner." It was peace, not the dramatic, performative kind Jacob used to chase, but the quiet, earned kind. Then, one Thursday afternoon, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost ignored it until I saw the name flash, Elaine. I answered. Ashley, honey, she said, voice trembling slightly. I didn't know who else to call. My stomach dropped. Is Jacob okay? There was a pause, then a small sigh. Physically, yes. Spiritually, who knows? He's living in my basement now. Refuses to look for work. Says jobs are a construct of lower consciousness. I closed my eyes. Of course he does. He won't even help around the house, Elaine continued. I asked him to mow the lawn. He said the grass didn't consent to being cut. I couldn't help it. I laughed. That sounds like him. Elaine chuckled too, but it quickly faded. I just wanted to say, I understand now. You tried to help him. You really did. And I'm sorry for ever thinking otherwise. That hit harder than I expected. For months, I'd been painted as the villain in Jacob's narrative. Hearing his own mother say those words felt like a door finally closing. Thank you, I said softly, and I hope you're taking care of yourself. I am, she said. He's the one who's not. He spends his days talking to people online about manifesting prosperity while living off my groceries. The irony is poetic. We talked for a while longer. She told me Jacob's ex-girlfriend Luna was now dating someone new, a yoga influencer named Phoenix, and that Jacob had found out through Facebook. Apparently, he'd spent 3 days in bed afterward fasting to purify his heartbreak. I wanted to feel sorry for him, but I didn't. Not anymore. Some lessons are meant to sting. A week later, as if fate were mocking me, I saw him. George and I were at the grocery store arguing about which soy sauce brand was superior when I noticed a familiar figure by the produce aisle, hoodie unshaven, staring blankly at a pile of instant noodles. Jacob. He looked smaller somehow, like life had folded him inward. His hair was unwashed, his posture uncertain. For a moment, he didn't see me. Then he turned, and our eyes met. Time did that Sputnimage thing where it both stopped and raced ahead. He froze. I saw a flicker of recognition, shock, maybe even shame. I felt nothing. Not anger, not pity, just distance. Then his gaze shifted to George, who was now beside me, holding a basket full of actual groceries, smiling that easy, genuine smile that had become my new normal. Jacob's expression changed, part hurt, part disbelief. I gave him a polite nod. No words, no tension. Just acknowledgement. He tried to speak, but his voice cracked. Ashley. I simply smiled, gentle but firm. Take care of yourself, Jacob. Then I turned and walked away. It wasn't triumphant. It wasn't cinematic. It was just over. That night I told George what had happened. He chuckled softly. You handled that better than most people would. I shrugged. The hardest part of growing up is realizing not every wound deserves a sequel. He smiled. That's going in my notes app. We had dinner on the terrace, wine, music, laughter. The skyline glittered beneath us like a constellation rearranging itself. At one point, I caught myself thinking about how for years I'd believed evolution meant endurance, holding on, forgiving endlessly, carrying the weight of someone else's self-discovery. Now I knew the truth. Evolution isn't about ascending, it's about shedding. Shedding illusions, guilt noise. And once you do, what's left is clarity. A few days later, I received one final text from an unknown number. Hi, Ashley. It's Jacob. I wanted you to know I'm starting therapy. Real therapy, not spiritual advising. I realize now I made mistakes. I miss what we had. Could we get coffee? Just to talk. For a moment, I stared at the message. The old me, the woman who once believed in saving lost causes, would have felt compassion, would have said yes out of habit. But now I just felt peace. No, Jacob. I truly wish you well. But my evolution doesn't include revisiting the past. Seconds later, another ping. Who is he? What does he have that I don't? A sense of reality, I replied. Blocked. One last time. A week later, I got a message from Elaine again. Just wanted to let you know she wrote Jacob moved out. He says he's finally ready to face the world. He thanked me for being his mirror. I'm not sure what that means, but at least he took the trash out before leaving. I smiled. Maybe miracles do happen. Now, when people ask me about him, I don't tell them the full story. I just say, we grew in different directions. It's simpler that way. But sometimes on quiet evenings, I'll stand on my terrace with George beside me, both of us watching the city lights flicker like tiny possibilities. And I'll think, Jacob was right about one thing. Evolution is real. But the most powerful kind doesn't come with crystals or hashtags. It comes when you stop mistaking chaos for depth and silence for weakness. It comes when you finally understand that letting go is not punishment, it's alignment. And as I sip my wine, feeling the steady warmth of George's hand around mine, I realize something simple, almost funny. I evolved too, just in the direction of peace.